Welcome to RAD Real Adventure Discovery. Today's adventure is from Cajon Pass in California, down and through the mountain, over to Lytle Creek. So hopefully today I'll have enough battery life. The trails up here in the desert can get pretty sandy, and with the high desert winds. So most of the time, I keep the electric bike in pedal assist mode 2, and that keeps me right around 12 and a half miles per hour. The extended battery range, if I keep it in pedal assist 2, I can get 65 to 80 miles on a charge. Some of the highlights for today will include overview of the Cajon Pass and the Interstate 15 crossing. Other highlights of the adventure today will include an old rail car that was abandoned after a train wreck. Really spectacular views along the rail track as we cross over towards Lost Lake. The spectacular views are of the Mormon mounds. As I mentioned, Lost Lake will be just around the other side before crossing over the bigger mountain range that leads to Lytle Creek. It comes out right along the campground there in Lytle Creek. Connects to the main power line road. Just a little bit closer to the pass area here, which is where my destination was, so I'm trying to save a little bit of battery. You'll see the trail we're going to take is 3N21. This viewpoint overlooks all of Cajon Pass area. In the front here, in the forefront, you see the I-15 South, of course with gridlock traffic. And beyond that, you see I-15 North, just before they go up the steep grade of the Cajon Pass. And in the distance, you'll see Highway 138. just beyond the traffic in the first set of hills, you'll see the Mormon mounds. It's a really nice view. The road you see just in the distance is a paved road, and that road actually goes up to Wrightwood, tucked in between those mountains on the right. And actually Lost Lake, you can turn on a dirt road on the other side of that paved road right there, turn left onto a dirt road, go about 2 miles down to Lost Lake, and the traffic's really heavy. A lot of people try to cut through the dirt roads and back roads anywhere they can to try to avoid the traffic. Right here, take you underneath I-15. I decided to take this route and stay on the west side of I-15, mainly because it's an easier route to get to the rail car that I mentioned. Nice little viewpoint up top here. See where we came from. Tower line towered at the top of the path there. Came on down the pathway around through here. pretty. And you can see there's a bunch of trash, graffiti. But back in 1996, there was a really bad train wreck coming down the Cajon Pass. There was a documentary done on it. There's just not enough engines for braking power based on the number of cars. And I believe it was miscalculation on how much weight they had, and kilos versus pounds. The translation was done improperly. They didn't have enough braking power. A couple people that were here, I believe, fighting the fire that ensued after the wreck, and all the cars piled up through this area. A couple of people perished, and there's a memorial up ahead for those folks. The engineer of the train, at some point, he leaped from the train coming down the Cajon Pass on the steeper part. I believe he leaped at 55 to 60 miles per hour. The train was Runaway and nothing he could do, and he survived. But one of the cars has been here ever since. As I mentioned, in 1996, I was actually coming home from a late night graveyard shift from work. I live up in the high desert here, and I was detoured by the highway patrol off at 138 from the I-15 northbound. Wasn't a whole lot there, but I remember seeing a big plume cloud in the sky, and it was about 3:30 a.m. in the morning as I was coming home from work, and a big fireball in the sky. I didn't know it at the time, but there were hazardous material on some of those cars that ignited and burned. So it was a really, really tragic event. Up ahead we'll see a memorial for folks who perished during that fire event. The memorial first, and then we'll go across on the other detour right here. EP96, Gil Ortiz, Kevin Williams, and Rudy Borrego. I remember the day that this happened. As I mentioned earlier, I was right over there off Highway 138 trying to get home from work. These guys, probably right as that happened, were rushing to get here to fight the fire. The only thing out here at that time mostly was just a 76 gas station. As I made the interchange at 215 and 15, I could see a mushroom cloud of flame and smoke in the sky. It was really big. The only thing I could imagine at that time was that the 76 gas station was on fire or blew up or something like that. It wasn't until I got to the detour at Highway 138 that I realized it was in the distance and it was related to the train. I didn't know it was a derailment at the time. There used to be a cement barrier to cross from that side. But it was removed. And so the other side of the sandy wash goes down underneath Highway 138 as well. But it kind of dead ends down into the riverbed down at the other end, which we'll see along the pathway. So there's a few routes to take. You can go up this way, parallel the track, comes back down, and then it goes back up. Or you could stay along this path and it'll take you around to the railroad crossing. This is one of the highlights of the trip. At least I think so. The Mormon mounds extend from the other side of Highway 138 on the north side all the way across through the Cajon Pass region. We're going to take a little detour here and see the little river crossing that leads over to Cleghorn. Sometimes the river's flowing pretty deep, so we'll have to see how deep it is today and if we're able to cross it. It looks all right. There's a railroad crossing right there that loops you around onto the roadway right here. And it comes in from Cleghorn right there. This is the route you would take if you were trying to get over to these off-road trails. This stream goes a ways back there. If you're on foot, or maybe on a mountain bike, you could get through under the area there, back under Highway 138 by all the service stations and McDonald's and that. If you're in a wide vehicle like a Jeep or something, might be a little difficult to get through there. They're single track pathways. A Jeep probably would have a struggle. So I'm going to come back to our original route here. We're going to come up this ridge and we're going to cross the railroad tracks. And then we're going to parallel the railroad tracks and we're going to come around to, I believe it's called Swarthout Canyon. There's a turnout across this ridge that will take you to Lost Lake. Oftentimes the gate is locked shut. Well, looks like my fender is coming apart. So I'm gonna have to find a way to reattach it. Hopefully I'm able to do that. So hopefully this works. We'll see. Pathway to Lytle Creek goes up that ridge. We're going to make a short stop up here at Lost Lake. Here's Lost Lake. They used to have a restroom facility here. They also had a little information board, but it was full of graffiti. During the lockdown time, arriving at Lost Lake here. Lost Lake is like a little oasis here in the desert, in the middle of Cajon Pass. It's actually a sag pond, which is a low point along the San Andreas Fault, where the water in the lake here actually comes up through a crease in the earth from the San Andreas Fault line and creates a sag pond. So the water's really nice and cold in here. So really nice to go swimming or just soak your feet and cool off in the summertime. You can look back up that canyon. That direction there is the direction that the San Andreas Fault line goes. That goes back up towards Wrightwood, California. There's two dirt roads that cross over these mountains and go over to Lytle Creek. One is a little ways further down the dirt road here to the left, tucked away around in that canyon, near just beyond where you see that cross on the ridge there by the power lines. And the other way is over here, and this is probably the shortest route, Applewhite Drive. These little posts and this gate right here were put in because they have had landslides in this area, but mainly up further ahead where this road will be closed from time to time when rock and landslides happen and block the roadway, and it's unsafe to cross. And there below you can see Glen Helen, where the Glen Helen Amphitheater is. And if you look off in the distance, you might be able to see some grain silos for the milling company that's down there just at the bottom part of the hills in the center. Well, I don't have a Pro Edition mountain bike with a high wattage motor, so I've got a 1,000-watt motor with a 1,200 peak watts. So if I push it too hard and too steep, I may have to walk for a little ways to let the motor cool itself down. But we'll see how far I get with the pedal assist. There's a few more of those before I reach the top. And there we go. That's the sound of the motor telling you it needs a brake. And there we go. That's the sound of the motor telling you it needs a brake. Some steep climbs where I've wore the motor down and you'll hear it start to growl. There's some planetary gears in the motor. I think those are plastic. So I'm not sure if it's just the electric motor overheating or if those planetary gears are grinding. Either way, probably not good for the long-term life of the motor, but you give it about a 10-15 minute break and it's usually good to go. Water break. Supplies you should make sure you have with you on any trip like this. Tube repair patch kit. And one of the more valuable things that I keep with me, rechargeable tire inflator. You get stuck out somewhere, you got a flat tire, your only option may be to leave your bike stranded or push it and walk out of there. Sometimes you might be 5, 7, 10, 12 miles from where you need to be or need to get to. So definitely something to keep in your emergency kit. Nice view of the mountains. You can see Route 66 down below there, and all the cars trying to bypass Interstate 15. It's probably a good 6 miles before they get back onto Interstate 15 at Cleghorn, just below Highway 138. Took a break right here and let the bike get a break. Try to see if the motor's going to give me any assistance. Maybe not yet. Gave it another 10 minutes to cool down. We'll see if the motor's prepared to take the remaining part of this trail up the ridge. You can see the trail veers off to the left that way. That side goes over and drops down to a shooting range. Excuse me, I was going to say firing range, but shooting range. And it continues up over some other hills and drops down right at Glen Helen. Lytle Creek is just on the other side of these hills. We'll be able to see a little resort area and a nice view once we get to the peak here. Let's see how this goes. We're going to drop down into Lytle Creek. You can see down below at the end of the paved road, it keeps going into a dirt road all the way back into that canyon. Here is some property here. People have some horses, some land. Down below here though, I was going to show you a nice view from above. You could see there's a resort here with some lakes, and off around that left side there's some little cabins, and people have I don't believe it's a timeshare, I believe it's a ownership or a membership, but they have RVs and travel trailers that come in, and some people stay in the little cabins that are there. We'll be crossing by on the main road there. We're going to drop down the ridge over here by the campground and then come into town down below. Applewhite Road. The little dirt path you've seen right there cuts across this ridge, and there's a city, I believe it's a community center or civic center building, and the entry to the other dirt road that crosses back over towards Lost Lake. Right here at Sycamore Drive, it's a little tuckaway community called Happy Jack in Lytle Creek. Estimated population 280. White Campground. Right off the trail of Applewhite Road. You can see the ridge where you came down from up above there. Here we are pulling up to Scotland store, Melody's place. If you're looking to get a bite to eat or something cold to drink, this is just about one of the only places to get it in Lytle Creek. Gonna head down the canyon and come around to Route 66 and head on back up towards Cajon Pass. This little Bonita Falls day use area was put in recent years. Provides parking, access to the creek. On the other side of the ridge here to my right is Rancho Cucamonga. Straight ahead is Fontana. Over here just to my left is Glen, Helen, and in the distance San Bernardino. Passing by the Glen Helen Amphitheater here on the right, outdoor concert and other venue. It's a regional park and a water park. Right here is where 215 and 15 connect and head up Cajon Pass. A few years back when they redid this interchange, they connected Cajon Boulevard here with Route 66, so you can actually go under Interstate 15. This is Kenwood Avenue, which will take you back to the south and the north on-ramp for Interstate 50. Get our last glimpse of the sun before it dips behind the mountain there. We should see the sun again as we wind our way around the mountain and the hills over here up ahead. You see this other roadway on the right. This was all part of the original Route 66. This was the original route that went up through the Cajon Pass up into the high desert. There was a summit inn at the top of the pass way back when. Famous people like Elvis used to travel to Vegas on this route, but it wasn't just a few hours to get to Vegas. It was an all-day trip. With traffic nowadays, sometimes it can be an all-day trip again. But Summit Inn at the top of the Cajon Pass burned down several years ago during some of the fires that came through the ridge there. I believe it was Blue Cut Ridge fire. But so way back when, this roadway you see on my right where it says road closed, it was lanes going northbound, and where I'm at now was lanes going southbound. Up around a bend up ahead is the area where the San Andreas Fault crosses. And these two mountain ranges and plates are pushing against each other. So this area here is right on the San Andreas fault line. To my left is Lost Lake. And immediately on my left, down below here, is the wash for flood control, which is part of the San Andreas fault line right through this area here. So right here at Swarthout Canyon, that's the road that loops around to Lost Lake. And after the tracks where it turns to dirt, that dirt road goes up to Highway 138. It's like we're chasing daylight. I think I've got enough battery power to make it back up to the high desert. I made this trip once before, but I started from my house in Victorville, California, and the extra distance to get to Cajon Pass and then down to Lytle Creek, it got dark before I could make it back up to the high desert. So I had to make the call of shame and call my wife to come pick me up. There's a McDonald's at Highway 138 and Interstate 15. So I parked there as it got dark and enjoyed an ice cream cone while I waited for my wife to pick me up. So hopefully I can make it back across on the dirt trail here and back up that ridge to where I'm parked at before it gets dark. If not, may have to come back to Highway 138 and make that call of shame. But we'll see how it goes. There's the Amtrak. currently construction is underway for the bullet train to go up, I believe, down the center of Interstate 15. I'm gonna make a turn here on Cajon Boulevard, but I'm gonna have to wait for the train to get by before I can cross. So if you come off of Cleghorn off I-15, or if you continue on Cajon Boulevard right here, you come down towards the end here and it drops down right here, and you can cross the tracks, actually cross multiple sets of tracks, and then you'll cross a little stream over here, which I crossed earlier, and this is the route that you come in from if you're in a off-road vehicle. So with my luck, I'll have to wait for that train to go by before I can cross. On the way in towards Lytle Creek, came around by the Mormon mounds. I mentioned that you could go straight, you would come in here. So we're going to take this route back as darkness is coming soon. I think I need to make time to get back up to the high desert. We're going to cross from the west side of I-15 to the east side. We're going to connect with this dirt road. Comes off of Highway 138 on the northeast side of 138 and I-15, and it takes you up to a staging area. A lot of OHV riders come up here. So this is the staging area. Not much to it. Just a little outhouse restroom and open space that fills up every weekend. And my battery power is running low, so I may have to make that call a shame, because I don't think I have enough juice to go up that mountain range right there. Wish I did. I'm already getting the error code for low battery. So I'm gonna have to make the call a shame. Well, fortunately, this trail is all downhill all the way back to Highway 138. Well, I guess the fender didn't last. There we go. The fender actually slid forward and under the tire, and then just caused the whole tire to lose traction and slide like it's sliding on the plastic fender. So that's not good. Well, I guess the zip ties last me till I got back to McDonald's for a ride.